I speak for the Horde.
My name's Cory Stockton, and I'm the lead content designer on World of Warcraft. I think what's cool is to give players a sense of history from what they played in Burning Crusade. Burning Crusade, the planet was completely wrecked, it's destroyed, it was full of demons, and there wasn't even any water. It was basically floating islands in the twisting nether. So to get a chance to go to these familiar spaces and rebuild them in a way that feels familiar but with all new experiences is really exciting. The Draenor that people are going to be going to here is completely new. This isn't something like what we did with Cataclysm, where we went back to some of our older zones and did a little bit of rework, a little bit of touch-up to bring them up to speed. These are completely brand new zones, and they're reimagined in a way that they would feel familiar. So when you go to Shadowmoon Valley, it's named Shadowmoon Valley, but the look, everything that you're doing there is completely brand new. But certain landmarks will still exist. So a place like Black Temple in this time is actually the Temple of Karabor, which is a sacred place for the Draenei. I think Hellfire Peninsula is a very familiar zone to many players because it was their first intro into Burning Crusade. In this time, that zone is actually called Tanan Jungle. Turns out that that entire zone was this beautiful, lush, but extremely dangerous jungle. But what you're going to still have are things like the mountain ridges will still be in similar places. The Dark Portal, for example, still be in the same place. The time frame we're playing in, though, means that there'll be different landmarks, there'll be different races, there'll be ocean around the edge instead of just a cliff that you would fall off of. I think it's a cool example of how we'll take some place that feels really familiar, but really just wrap it up in a whole new experience. A couple zones that players might find familiar would be something like Talador, which is where Shatrath is located. Players would remember it as Terakar Forest in Burning Crusade. And we've worked pretty hard to try to keep a similar forest theme, but to really build out what the Draenei Empire would have looked like in that area. In that same vein, Nagrand would be another great example of a zone that'll feel familiar yet fresh. So in this time and era, you're going to still see the homeland of the orcs, but you'll see a clan there that's brand new, the Warsong clan. You'll really get to see how they lived in the zone, how they hunted, what they did, and I think it'll really offer a different vibe from what players experienced in Burning Crusade. There's a lot of familiar places that we ended up making changes to, but it was pretty tough because we loved them in Burning Crusade. A great example of that would be Zangar Marsh. I think a lot of players feel like Zangar Marsh was a very iconic zone. It's very unique. It was lush. In this time, Zangar Marsh is mostly almost completely covered underwater. It's basically what we've called as the Zangar Bay. So it's like a large sea of water, but it turns out underneath that bay are these giant mushrooms that are growing, and we're going to portray that in the actual expansion so that it feels like if people go out there and explore, they'll really get the vibe that, oh, this is what turns into Zangar Marsh later.
Disappoint me, Garrosh. You are not worthy of your father's legacy.
We've been inspired by a number of things. I think the Garrosh storyline offered us an opportunity here to want to explore orcs in more depth. And I think that kind of plays directly into kind of doing a change of scenery from what we had in Pandaria. And we really thought it was time to get back to something that felt more Warcraft in general, something that feels, primal, a world of giants. It feels like the forest wants to kill you when you're inside of it. So I think the opportunity to go back here and explore the history of the original orc clans, something that feels incredibly Warcraft, but it also fits in very well with the story of Garrosh and what's been going on with him. So I think the players, it'll feel natural, but also, something that they really want to explore.